Faith. Just what is it? It seems like a simple enough word on the surface, but authors across time, and spanning the landscape of religion, maintain a surprising lack of consensus. I have sometimes tried to give up using the word faith, finding some other word to use in its place. That way, I hoped to be able to say what I really meant, so that everyone could understand it, rather than being weighed down by a word with a staggering portion of emotional baggage. Further, this replacement would have the added effect of not offending people who hold a different definition of faith than I do. The problem is, though, that whatever word I have used to replace it so far, trust, expectation, etc., is also met with confusion or even animosity. It seems that faith suffers from multiple personality disorder. Even if some people can agree upon what it means, not everyone can. People end up dividing themselves into faith definition camps. Some people agree that faith is belief turned into action. Other people agree that faith is belief independent of action. Much ink has been spilled over these points throughout centuries of debate, and though I do not plan to resolve such issues today, I do hope to appeal to the basic commonality inherent in all of these approaches. In our daily lives, we know something about many things, but we do not know everything about anything. So, we do things on a daily basis that we do not fully understand. Think about this with me for a moment, will you? When you wake up at night, thirsty, some of you probably get up and go to the bathroom to get a drink. You pull back your covers, ease one leg onto the floor by your bed, and then slip the other leg off the bed and onto the floor. Before you know it, you have gotten your drink and have returned to bed, snug under your covers and back to sleep. Before you know it. This is a key phrase. How many of us, when we do this, or something like it, actually stop to think through every step of the process? People simply do not have to. Such things are so ingrained as habits that we do not have to think our way through them. Many of us could even do this without fully waking up. Many of you probably have. Habit, huh? So let's change the setting. Now you are visiting friends and sleeping in their guest room. Can you still negotiate your way to a drink? My guess is that you will have to think your way through this a bit more thoroughly. Perhaps you are no longer able to pull off this trick without waking up. Your habits are not as helpful here. They instruct you to do things that will not achieve your goal, and you must override them to actually achieve your goal. By habit, for instance, you would go to the right to get to the bathroom. But now, at your friend's house, you have to go to the left. When you are in your typical setting, your habits are right on target, and you do not have to think through such issues at all. When you are traveling, these same habits would guide you only inadequately, and if you totally and completely follow them, you would probably not satisfy your thirst. You might not even make it back to bed. Now, place yourself in the Lord of the Rings movies. Imagine that you are Frodo, and you are sleeping on a cliff above Minas Morgul. Now, when you wake up to get a drink, you'd better not simply thrust your legs over the side of the bed. You might wake up falling. For a long time. Now let's get back to reality. When any of us, whether at home or traveling, get up in the middle of the night, how often do we check to make sure the floor is there before we step down? If you were in a hotel, you might be dozens of feet above the surface of the earth. Yet few, if any of us, ever check to make sure the floor is still there. With the floor in place, we know we are safe. With the floor missing, however, we might easily plummet to our death. Instead of looking, we slip from our covers as if it is impossible that the floor would not be there. In our minds, we know the floor is there. The floor has always been there for us when we get out of bed. Unless something tragic has happened, and then we no longer expect that it will be. In the case of a fire or an earthquake, we have reason to think that the floor might not be there, and so we will proceed with caution. But barring a disaster that would have woken us up anyway, or purposefully falling asleep near Minas Morgul, the floor has always been there for us. Just because something has always been there in the past, though, is no guarantee that it will continue to be there in the future. The sun has risen every day of my life, and I have no reason to believe that it will call in sick tomorrow. Yet past experience is patently not a proof of future outcome. We may have reason to believe that the sun will continue to rise on a daily basis, or that the floor will retain its firmness in the morning, but we have no proof that these things are true. When we emerge from our beds in the morning, we presume that the floor will still be there. We act without proof. We do this, to some extent, because we have to. Sure, people could scrupulously study the permanence of the floor every morning, but human beings cannot go through life questioning the permanence of everything they learn. No, we simply could not be effective human beings if we questioned all such commonplace events. In fact, that limitation on our effectiveness is why we have habits. Habits latch on to certain presumptions and guide our behavior without having to think through and question everything all of the time. In this way, our minds are free to consider other things. If we had to consciously guide, for instance, every step we took, we would not be able to get anything else done. If we had to evaluate the consistency of everything we have learned all the time, we would have to admit that we could not truly prove that our planned activities were safe, and we would either be paralyzed by fear, under constant and extreme anxiety, or adopt a reckless, devil-may-care attitude. Our habits and our presumptions are shortcuts that allow us to navigate life without the incapacitating effect of questioning everything all the time. All of us, if we are human beings, presume many things every day. For instance, we presume that the food we normally eat has more nutritional value than poison value. No, I'm not saying that we need to keep our local grocer under constant vigil lest he poison our food. I am suggesting something very much more profound than that. I am suggesting that we assumed that fresh green beans were nutritious for us yesterday, and that we also assume that fresh green beans will continue to be nutritious for us tomorrow. Again, we assume that the gravity of the earth will keep pulling us down, rather than in some other direction, and most of our presumptions turn out to be correct most of the time. We just don't think about them because the more often our presumptions are confirmed in a particular setting, the more often we expect them to be confirmed again, and again, especially in that setting. So, it looks like presumption is the word that I am using to replace faith. I was trying to find a word that would offend no one. Perhaps in my mental wanderings I have instead inadvertently found a word that will offend everyone. The point is that much of what we do in life, whether religious or not, is based on unproven presumption. We expect the sun to rise each day. We trust that the floor will still be there in the morning, and we have faith that gravity will continue to pull us toward the center of the earth. We have reason to believe all of these, at least within certain limits, but we can prove none of them. We must begin our understanding of religious faith by acknowledging that it operates on the same general principle as these secular presumptions.